Hey there, it's Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware, here with yet another bodacious beauty of a gaming laptop, this time a 16-inch svelte stunner by the name of the Asus ROG Zephyrus M16. It is powered by Intel's 12th gen core processor technologies with their Alder Lake architecture and an NVIDIA GeForce RTX 3070 Ti GPU under its hood for gaming firepower, as well as a pretty nice high refresh rate display. Let's take you on a tour and show you what it's made of next. The Asus Zephyrus M16 comes in a mostly fingerprint-resistant, off-black chassis finish with an aluminum lid that has no less than 8,279 perforations that combine for a subtle yet dazzling effect, as Asus calls it. I'd call it the rainbow twinkle look, and it's kind of cool from different angles. Under the lid and around the typing deck, we're treated to a rubberized soft-touch matte finish that feels nice and smooth. And the display is indeed a 16-inch display, but with the thinnest of bezels and a 94% screen-to-body ratio, Asus was able to squeeze that 16-inch display into a 15-inch form factor for the M16. And comparatively versus Alienware's X15 series of gaming laptops, it indeed sports a much smaller footprint, though it is a thicker machine overall, but it does occupy a lot less real estate comparatively on the desk. And yes, that touchpad is massive with tons of real estate and very responsive input for multi-gesture support. And the keyboard is also a spacious affair with 1.7 millimeters of travel for the keycaps and nicely illuminated function row with icons that actually tell you what those function keys do. And Asus calls this a stealth type keyboard that keeps noise output under 30 dB while you're typing so as not to disrupt your Zoom meetings or what have you. I would say this is a very responsive keyboard for sure. It's comfortable, and there's very little flex in the typing deck as well. On the left side edge, we've got a power barrel connector port, an HDMI 2.0B port, RJ45 multi-gig Ethernet port, USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port, a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C with Thunderbolt 4 port, and a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type C with DisplayPort 1.4 and power delivery. There's also a 3.5 millimeter audio jack over here. And on the right side, we've got a USB 3.2 Gen 2 Type A port and a micro SD card slot. And speaking of that power port, Asus bundles in a 240 watt power adapter with the machine, and it's pretty compact for the output that it offers. Now let's focus on that display again for a moment because it is a beauty. Here we have a 16-inch WQXGA IPS panel with a native resolution of 2560 by 1600 and a 16 by 10 aspect ratio. It is an anti-glare panel, and it sports 100% of the DCI-P3 color gamut coverage, a 165 Hz refresh rate, and a 3 millisecond response time. Output is 500 nits of brightness, and color, saturation, and contrast just pops. This is a gorgeous panel with great viewing angles. Really can't say enough about it. Good job, Asus. This is quite a display for a gaming laptop and will get the job done nicely for a myriad of use cases well beyond gaming as well. However, there is one caveat here, and that is the absolutely tiny webcam that Asus outfitted in the top of the display that does a nice job of keeping bezels thin, but only sports a 720p resolution versus full HD. It does have an IR camera on board with Windows Hello support, but in this day of teleconference meetings, really we should be looking at 1080p resolution here. Moving right along, and before we fire this bad boy up for some benchmarks, let's run down some pertinent high-level specs. This machine is powered by an Intel Core i9-12900H, 14-core Alder Lake processor with 20 threads of processing. That's 6 P cores and 8 E cores, or efficiency cores, and a 5 GHz maximum boost clock. Also on board is 32 gigs of DDR5, 4800 MHz memory, and a 2 TB M2 NVMe PCI Express 4 solid state drive that puts out about 6.5 gigs a second of bandwidth on reads and about 5 gigs a second of bandwidth on writes for real snappy performance. And finally, the GPU is none other than NVIDIA's GeForce RTX 3070 Ti, pushing the pixels here with 120 watt TGP, or total graphics power, for the board, and 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. Pulling a few screws to get under the hood, you can see all those pretty guts in action. Here you can see there's only one SODIMM slot, so 16 gigs of our 32 gig DDR5 memory configuration is actually soldered down to the motherboard, but you do get that one SODIMM slot for future expansion. Also, you'll notice there are two M2 SSD slots here, so you can set up a RAID solution or have a primary drive and a secondary drive, which is nice. And as you can see, the battery is here, very serviceable. And on either side of the battery, you can see a pair of woofer drivers here. And in conjunction with twin tweeters and a Dolby Atmos certified system, this acoustic solution also puts out really nice sound quality. You get good volume, decent low end for a laptop sound system, and good high end and mid-range response. And of course, Asus's 6 heat pipe array and dual blower fan assembly for the thermal solution in the Zephyrus M16, which does a nice job of cooling the system under load, as we'll discuss next when we fire the M16 up for our benchmark gauntlet. Now dialing in performance profiles with Asus's excellent Armory Crate software utility. Here you can see we've got all kinds of knobs and dials to tweak things to your heart's content, including RGB lighting and all that good stuff. But out of the box, the performance profile that's set is, wouldn't you know, performance, but we've also got silent and turbo mode settings here. Performance mode sets the TGP of the GPU, specifically our 3070 Ti, at 100 watts, which offers excellent performance and puts out about 46 dBA of noise output, acoustic output from the thermal solution, the fans on board. You can go to turbo mode as well, and that kicks things up a notch for the GPU to 120 watt TGP and a little bit more performance for sure, as well as a little bit more noise. And we measured mid-50s in terms of acoustic output from the thermal solution. So it gets a little noisy and a little bit racket going on with turbo mode enabled, but performance mode is plenty powerful and actually quite tame for a gaming laptop. So in short, this is a well-built gaming laptop with a gorgeous display and some cutting-edge silicon engines on board, but how does it perform? Let's take a look. Starting off our benchmark test track with a little Cinebench R23, the Zephyrus M16 with its 14-core Alder Lake P processor here is going to drop in the upper quadrant with the rest of the Core i9-12900 family of notebooks we have tested to date. But as you can see, strong performance and thermal bleed was minimal here even after consecutive runs. We should also note that we tested this at the machine's standard performance profile out of the box, but we are going to test in the following gaming benchmarks at both performance and turbo mode settings. Moving right along to a little 3D Mark Time Spy action here, you're going to see the M16 slot in a little bit under RTX 3070 class performance in its standard performance mode, but flip on turbo mode and it vaults up to the top of the RTX 3070 list with its GeForce RTX 3070 Ti GPU, offering much better performance at that setting. And dropping the pedal to the metal in that fantastic looking racing sim F1 2021 here at the 1080p ultra quality preset graphic settings with ray tracing enabled. You can see the Zephyrus M16 drops in above the Alienware X14 with its GeForce RTX 3060 as expected for a GeForce RTX 3070 Ti powered machine, but it doesn't quite catch the Radeon RX 6800M in Asus's own ROG Strix G15 from last year. However, kick it up to turbo mode and the RTX 3070 Ti stretches its legs once again and is able to outpace the Radeon RX 6800M powered Strix G15. And finally, a little intergalactic superhero action here with Guardians of the Galaxy dialed in at 1080p ultra settings again with ray tracing enabled. And we're going to see an exceptional performance put up here by the Zephyrus M16, slotting in well above the Alienware X14 with its GeForce RTX 30 3060 and Core i7-12700H, as well as the Strix G15 with its Radeon RX 6800M GPU. And when you kick it up to turbo mode, the Zephyrus M16 is actually in the hunt with Alienware's X15R1 with its GeForce RTX 3080. However, again, we would caution you're going to get a bit more fan racket at turbo mode settings. With respect to battery life, we're still ringing out the Zephyrus M16, but we're seeing some respectable numbers in our light-duty video loop test with about 5 hours of untethered uptime. Of course, while gaming, you're going to get a lot less, but that's to be expected. Pricing for the 2022 Zephyrus M16 with its Alder Lake processor and 32 gigs of RAM and 2 terabyte SSD as tested weighs in at about $2,500 at e-tail, though you can find Best Buy models with a little less RAM, 16 gig configs, and a 1 terabyte SSD for about $2,150. So it's a decent value for the firepower on board for sure, but it is every bit a gaming laptop, and all that high-end hardware does come at a cost. Regardless, make sure you stop by hothardware.com for our full deep dive review put together by the illustrious Ben Funk. And hit thumbs up and subscribe if you'd be so kind so you get notified when we launch our next video review. I'm Dave Altavilla for Hot Hardware with the Asus ROG Zephyrus M16 gaming laptop. Thanks so much for stopping by.